15, 6, yeah, sure. Thanks. So you're trying to make it gender specific. Okay. 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 Let me give you a general answer to this and then make it specific. So basically, none of the fields are really specific to a gender, right? Be it a boys or girls. Girls can do marketing and boys can obviously end up doing HR. In my current company and my previous company, we have a healthy mix of boys and girls. It's actually what you want to do and how you want to do. So if someone is passionate about marketing, sales, that's where you want to do, irrespective of whether you're a girl or a boy. And if people, understanding people, addressing issues, getting onto policies, writing down anything for the organization relating to policies, anything relating to human resources, what you are passionate about, I don't think it's a constraint because in the current corporate world, it's a healthy mix across. Be it HR, be it marketing, be it finance, be it international business, be it any sphere, it's a healthy mix. In fact, nowadays corporates are very choosy on getting a healthy mix between boys and girls. So, for example, in marketing, if you see, typically the gen is more biased towards boys, right, as compared to girls. But nowadays, corporates are being very specific around what kind of genders and what kind of people that they hire in a particular skill set. And that's similar for HR. Typically, HR is more heavy on women as compared to men, but that's again a conscious decision that people are doing it. And the reason that there's a there's a reason why we're doing conscious decision because it's not that only women succeed in a particular sphere or men succeed. I think it's what you want to do. I really believe if you think there's something that you want to do, I think you can just do it. It's not gender biased at all. And I'm telling you a real scenario from a corporate world. It's not gender biased at all. Answers? This group is very sorted. No one has any questions. Sure. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, of course. Okay, so there are two things to look at it. One is when a lot of these organizations come to your campus, it might be a specific kind of hiring. Like when I remember when I was here, there were companies which would come specifically for hiring people for training and development, which would come specially for a generalist role or a talent acquisition, which is a recruitment role. That's one way to look at it, and you get into that field and then decide whether you like it or not. But a lot of us, what we did was we got into a role which is called a generalist role, okay, which involves various facets of HR. You do training, you do talent acquisition, you do staffing, you do generalist, you do a lot of that stuff. You do that for a couple of years. That's when you realize what you want to do. That's when you obviously move ahead. So nowadays, most of the IT consulting firms or any other consulting firms, management consultings, IT consultings, FMCGs, whatever you name it, they are pretty flexible. So for example, 4 years you have done a generalist role, you've got experience to various other HR fields. Now you think you want to you want to go into training and development. You can obviously go ahead and speak, provided the organization gives you that atmosphere to learn. Suppose an organization's training and development is only two people. They say, we don't need anyone else. So that obviously doesn't give you an opportunity. So the organization should be supportive. But to answer your question, of course you can. So for example, in my case, in statement while I was there, I was doing a generalist HR. Then from generalist, I moved into core talent acquisition. And then from core talent acquisition into Mckinsey, I moved into a mix of generalist plus staffing. So I have changed and moved around. And as a person, I don't typically get stuck into one. Because, for example, I don't want to do talent acquisition all my life. I don't want to do generalist all my life. That's why I keep changing. So for a large part of my life, I was doing generalist. That's when I realized something else in talent acquisition. And now I'm doing generalist plus a new role, which is staffing. And I lead that overall function. So that's how it is typically. So you can go into any field, but initially you have to spend some time getting a hang of other stuff. Okay, so a chartered accountant is practically a dedicated specialized field. When you do a CA, you get into a particular kind of role, whether you get into taxation, whether you get into particular law or audit, that's a particular field and they teach you to be that. Right? So for example, in a CA, once you complete a particular number of years, you get into auditing. You do your interns into auditing, that's the role that you take. Whereas a chartered, like an MBA finance is different. You might get into a corporate, but you're not doing the core CA role. That's not possible because that requires education. That requires a previous background. So hence, if you that's it's similar to say that if you are not a lawyer, how will you practice law? Right? So it's similar. You can from an MBA finance, you can get into other fields of finance, which is in the corporate or any other FMCG. Those are mini features of finance, but the core role which a chartered accountant does, that an MBA finance, I mean, even if they try, it will not be justified for the person to do it because you're not specialized to do that. Hmm. Hmm. See, because if you want to get into finance, I don't have full insight into it, but I can give you whatever I know. So once you do MBA finance, CFA is which is it's an extension to the finance field. Yeah, I know that. It's an extension to the finance field. It just gives you an enhancement of what you want to do currently. So I can't really answer how much does it really help you while you're really working. But I know a couple of people who here and in my other friends, they've done MBA finance and after that they did CFA across levels. So they started with level one and two, whatever, and then they moved ahead. And the reason was that because, like you said, they couldn't do what a chartered accountant could do because of the specialization in that, so they hence adopted for CFA. Yeah, welcome. Okay. So what really happens is, if you're a fresher, right, and you would have done some summers, like a summer or a winter project. That's one way to look at it. But the basic thing to look at is your keenness and your drive to do a particular thing. So, for example, you get into marketing. Do you have the knack to do marketing or not? A lot of times we pick up a field because our peers are doing it, our friends are doing it, some in the family says this is good to do, so go ahead and do it. But you're inside, you don't have the knack to do that stuff. So when you go into the interview, that basic thing that they kind of judge, whatever they could from your body language, the questions that they ask, and a lot of the questions that are asked in interviews are not direct, which means that they ask tell you, for example, describe about yourself. When you're describing about yourself is when the interviewer will judge other stuff and see whether you fit into the role that he or she has in mind. So during the interview, if you have no work experience, then they basically judge how smart and how capable are you to handle what they're looking at, and you have the knack to do that stuff. But if you have a work experience, then it's separate. Plus, a lot of people do summers and winters in their particular field, what they want to do down the line. So that is also one of the parameters to judge. But the initial screening is basically your overall personality and whether you can do that stuff or not. That's about it. Nothing much. Because initially you can't really judge. A 30 minutes interview can't really take you to places, right? It's when you get onto the ground you do it. So in the 30 minutes time frame, or whatever time frame they have, they judge whatever they could. Sure. So I'll tell you how I decided I want to take H1 and then answer your question. So basically, as a person, I was a very people's person. I knew numbers I can't play with. So finance is typically out of the picture. And I'm not the person who can really, for example, marketing and sales involves a lot of this back and forth, convincing people, talking to people, being super polite, being very nice. How do you basically you have to sell? You have to consider that product something your baby and sell it further. So I knew I can't do that. So basically, people is what I always wanted to do: get a hang of people, get into stuff related to policies to the organization. That was my passion. Hence, I got into HR. So basically, you have to judge what you want to do. If you are a person who likes marketing, which is, who like Marketing doesn't always mean selling, right? It doesn't always mean selling. It is how you really market stuff. So, for example, all these brands that happen now, right? Any ads that you see, this is all parts of marketing. If this is what you want to do, so you will know, right, what you want to do, and that's where you have to get clarity on. 2 years after you've done something, you should not realize this is not what I wanted to do. Then it's little late in the day to realize. So you should really realize what you want to do. Is numbers your forte? Is people your forte? Is marketing sales your forte? If nothing else, what is the fourth thing that you want to do? Okay. See, I don't know exactly what marketing jobs, and to answer your question, it is not really door-to-door selling. I don't know how much do people do. I was into HR. That's That's what I said because I always wanted to do something in the people sphere. I was not the person. If you tell me to sell this mobile, even if it's an iPhone, I will not be able to sell it. Whereas everyone knows the features, but I won't be able to because that's not me. I can't really sell stuff and I can't really market anything. Even the marketing of even the product might be the best, but as a person, I can't do it. Suppose every product. To give you, let me give you an example. Okay, there are times that you use a particular phone. You know a couple of features which you don't like about the phone, but when you're selling the product or when you're marketing about that phone, you will never talk about that. As a person, that's not me. I will tell you black and white how it is. Marketing and sales doesn't function like that. You have to be pretty diplomatic in what you're doing and what you're selling. So that diplomacy or that kind of an art to do stuff needs to come. I was unable to do it. Even now, I can't do it. People was my forte, and that's why I entered into HR. Now, to answer your question on what kind of jobs are there in the marketing field, I don't know whether it's really door-to-door selling or what is it like. Because if you enter into a corporate, it can be marketing and sales both. And if it's sales, I'm not sure what kind of sales role that we have currently in the market. It typically depends on what kind of an industry you enter into. If it's like an FMCG industry, then it's I don't think it'll be ever be day to because all MBAs will not do door to door selling. I don't think that's an expectation that an MBA would have. So that's the way it is. And what was the second question that you had? Oh, you said no work life balance. Um, so I can tell you, a lot of these roles, you want to relax life basically, chill out. So you want to chill out life and you want an aram se wala job which pays you very well. Okay. So see, I can answer that question in two ways, right? One is what you want to do. Of course, I get it. I have a 2-year-old daughter as well, so I have to take out time even if I don't want to. It's how you prioritize, honestly. So, for example, I start my day very early in the morning because I want to reach home back on time. And after she sleeps, for example, I log in for a few hours. It's just how you manage it. Initially, it becomes a little difficult, right? Because you get onto, like you said, like from this carefree attitude to a responsibility corporate world. Corporate world is very different. People don't take you by the face value of it. You have to prove yourself. Here, no one judges you, right? They're all friends. They're all our colleagues. They become friends over a period of time, but initially everyone is a colleague. So life is very different. And if you ask me if it's a chilled out life, either you can chill now and suffer later, or work hard now to relax later. So it's the choice you want to do. So, you know, yeah, mostly marketing is that. So you have targets. So you have a particular target that you need to achieve, whether you're in the is a business development role within marketing or what kind of. It's typically a target-oriented job because if it's not target-oriented, you'll not get that motivation to do it because target means money, equivalent to money, right? So if you have like if you have to make a if to make a business for say about 4 lakhs, right, in a particular quarter, and if you haven't made that business, you will not get that money into your bank account as well. So that's the reason it's mostly target based. So, mm, what is that internal HR knowledge that you have? I understand. Mm. Yeah, of course, of course. Mm. See, it depends, right? In interviews, sometimes they ask you, they give you a real-time scenario. They'll give you a situation. In that situation, they'll ask you, how will you react? When they ask you, how will you react? That's when your knowledge, etc., what you have imparted or learned over your education and what you know, that's when it comes across. Suppose the other person doesn't give you a chance, you need to answer that, right? How will you answer that? So it's best to present yourself in that 30 minutes the way you should. Like, for example, even if someone asks you, describe about yourself, don't go by the regular routine saying that I've done this, I've done that. Take a different part to it, right? Decide on what part you want to decide, what you want to speak about, because that gives you an opportunity to prove yourself. Because at the end of the day, you guys don't have experience, right? So what you guys will be judged into in the initial minutes that you guys present yourself and how you describe. Because a lot of times, typically, for interviews, I don't know how much now, but when I was there, they wouldn't ask me a scenario and ask me to present it. But now I know things have changed. So a lot of these companies, when they come in, they might ask you a scenario they give you a scenario, right? And they ask you, how will you react? When they tell you how you react, it's time for you to prove yourself. Because that's when your knowledge, etc., what you said, will come into play. So if they give you an opportunity, you should. And if they are, so a lot of times this question also comes up: how do you see yourself 5 years down the line? That is also another opportunity to say what you want to do and what you have. So I think a couple of these questions you need to pick it up while they are asking to be able for the end person to know that you're the right person for this job. Okay. Sure. So I got placed directly from here into Sapient, and while I was in Sapient, I was doing a generalist HR role. So the reason also they hired me was because Sapient was still, it was still coming up. There were geographies like European geographies that were still coming up. So they hired a fresher. It was like a run, dry run to see if the fresher works out or not because they hadn't done it in the past in the HR sphere. So they wanted to see whether they could or not because they were transitioning. Transitioning means a lot of that Europe-related HR processes, they were coming down to India. While they were bringing it to India was from a cost perspective. It's typically more expensive in the other parts of the world as compared to India. So they were bringing it back to India. A lot of these processes. To name a few, like if a person exits the organization, what you want to do. If a new hire enters into the organization, what you want to do. If a person goes on any leave, a long-term leave, how do you? So a lot of these processes from Europe, they were coming back to India. So the reason I was hired and I was doing initially was a lot of these Europe processes, I was streamlining that with a senior of mine and also handling India-related processes. So my role was really generalist, which means I was handling the exit policies, the exit process, the leave of absence, which is a long-term leave, any a lot of the manual work is what I was doing in the beginning because as a fresher you need to get a hang of what happens on the ground. So a lot of that was I was initially got involved into performance appraisal, all that stuff. So a lot of groundwork, to understand what happens on the ground, to understand that basic, so that when I move up, I know niche kya ho raha hai, right? Otherwise, I'll be like lost. So that's what I was. Hi. I think I heard your question. Your question is the marketing person can do a public relations job as well.
You can choose public relation as a career in future.
Yeah, you can actually. And that's not really about marketing, that's about any sphere. Suppose you are an HR person, you get into the corporate world, and public relations or public marketing kind of a role also exists in the corporate. You can move fields. If that's what you want to do, you can move fields, of course. But initially what really happens is because we have a particular specialization while we're doing in masters, it's the expectation for us to also do when we enter into the corporate world. So suppose you're a marketing person, they will expect you to do some kind of marketing. And down the line, you can change profiles. Sorry, of course you can change profiles. You can go into public relations. For that matter, any other profile like a HR profile can also get into public relations.
Because public relations is related with promotions and advertisements, and marketing is a different field. So
Yeah. You can change profiles, but initially it becomes a little difficult unless until you're really lucky and you get the stuff that you're looking for. But typically, you have to spend a little time on what you have done during the overall time span to be able to move then.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I don't know, how do you want to define it? Is there a particular example that you have to say? I mean, how do you say growth is stagnant? Hmm. See, now HR has really evolved. It's really evolved. Like I was telling someone like I met that my parents literally asked me, what do you do for so many hours? What does HR have to do for so many hours? But the fact is that HR has really evolved. It is no more stagnant. Like I told you that in these 10 years I've actually changed 5 different fields. That's not because of stagnancy also. That's because what I also wanted to do. It's not stagnant at all. There's a scope to do a lot of stuff because a lot of these organizations are now very people conscious. So, for example, if there's anyone in the finance team, they would need HR at the end of the day for whatever's said and done. So, we at the end of the day have to prove ourselves and also give back to the organization the best we can. So, it's very evolving. It's no more stagnant. I don't think it has ever been stagnant. At least from my overall experience, it has never been stagnant. You can do whatever you want to do as well. And at the end of the day, it's up to you what you want to do. So, let me give you an example. In Mckinsey, there were a couple of policies that were redundant, right? And no one was really working on it, like chalta hai to chalta rahe type. But a group of people came together. So, for example, maternity policy over a period of time in has changed, right? From a couple of months, it has moved to across months, whereas in Mckinsey it was still the same. So, a couple of us got together and decided that we want to make a difference and we want to change it. So, we worked towards it. A lot of these organizations now also work on what you want to do and encourage that. So it's no more stagnant. It's what you want to do. And similarly, we did with a couple of other stuff that was already stagnant or nothing was happening on that. We got together and changed. Change meaning it happens change for the organization and happens change for yourself also. Because when you're working on something new, it's new. It's not the old routine work that you're doing. And to answer your question, it is a desk job. It is a desk job, right? HR is a desk job. You have to sit down and do that. It's not marketing where you move around stuff or even finance for that matter is quite a desk job for that matter. So it is. No, you do get a chance to be creative. You really get a chance. If you're not creative in any of the domains, you can't skill. It's no longer the regular stuff. It's very out of the box thinking kind of an atmosphere now in the corporate world. If you're a regular person, then you will be stagnant, no doubt about it. But if you're not a regular person and you believe in out of the box thinking and you kind of believe in doing stuff different way, I don't think anyone can stop you. Of course, of course. See, I can't answer that. It's very subjective. I don't know what the market says. I don't know. I can't answer that for that question because when I was there, um, I mean, I had colleagues of mine who were in finance and marketing, and we a couple of us was in HR, and we were paid at par or sometimes even more. It doesn't really, I can't quote a figure because it's not fair for me to quote a figure as well. So I can't really quote. Plus, I do not know honestly what does the current market pay to freshers. Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so. See, marketing why it seems more is because, like, your friend asked me, is it incentive based? And hence that's why they increase the bar a bit because they know that the person might or might not be able to reach a bar because there's always a variable factor to it, and hence in the mind it always seems more. Whereas HR or finance is always a fixed component that comes to you, and that's why that thing in the mind seems more. But I don't think there's a major difference between the money that you end up getting. Rest all the best. I don't know. See, it's what you like to do, right? If you want to do HR or you want to do marketing, both are like they are not dependent on each other, right? So if you say that if I do HR plus I have two main specializations, HR and marketing, will it be beneficial for me down the line? I don't know. It doesn't really make a difference because it's what you end up doing. You can't say, "Aaj मैं HR कर रहा हूँ," right? And then 4 5 years I'm like, no, no, not HR marketing, and then no, 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 again HR. So it doesn't really work like this. So that's the thing. It has to be very focused and very thoughtful decision when you're making a choice of a specialization that you want to do. You can do dual specialization, HR and marketing, but in the end, the job will be only one. It can be either HR or it can be either marketing. It can't be both. A lot of people do the dual specialization of HR and marketing because like, अच्छा चलो HR की job नहीं मिली तो marketing की तो मिल ही जाएगी, or vice versa, right? That's the thing that a lot of people do dual specialization and might have it. I'm not saying you, but in general, people do have that. So I'm not saying, so it's important what you think, what you want to do. You can't say both specializations and I'm open for both because you'll be open only for one. So that's what and it doesn't really make a difference if you do two or you do one because at the end you will do only one kind of a job. Yeah, so you can do dual specializations. That's okay. Yeah, yeah. What do you want to do? Okay. Can I tell you that no organization can function without an HR? Suppose tomorrow you guys want to get into any organization, if there's no HR, who will induct you guys? Who will tell you how the organization functions? So basically, it might sound very cliche, but HR is actually the backbone of any organization. Whatever you want to do, whatever change you want to do, it happens through the HR. Like today, you get into any organization and you're like, smallest of the things like how many leaves do you have in a year? You have 10 leaves. If the HR says no, no, it's not 10, it has to be 12, and they get into a consensus that has to be 12, it will be 12. You are in the marketing field, you keep crying that 12 nahi hai, whatever. So HR is actually the backbone of the organization, and that's why initially a couple of when I had actually entered, the HR wasn't too, they would not look up to the HR, but now things have changed. People really look up to the HR. You get that the required respect and everything because people understand that it's important for the organization to have a healthy HR team. Because if you don't have it, then the organization itself won't reach to the levels it has to. Any other questions? Is there anything that you guys want me to, in general, address it? If that's also the case, and I can answer for it for you guys. I'll be happy to. From my after I moved out from here, okay, it was crazy. Because when I moved out from here, I just like all of you guys, right? We come from a very when you're in college, you feel that the world is just you, but when you actually move out, it's very different. It took me quite a while because here it's a complete carefree attitude, right? It's no more a chill out life. Here it's chill out, but when you enter into the corporate world, it's sometimes it is right. It's not always that you have your parts of fun as well, but it carries with itself a lot of responsibility. Right now, when you're in college, right, there's no responsibility, nothing. You do what you want to do, or like, and I think education or the semester exams are the only stress that you have in life. But when you enter the corporate world, it's, I will not call it stress, but I think a lot of responsibility also comes with it. So, you know that you are responsible for a particular stuff and you owe certain deliverables back to the organization. That's what it comes into. But I think it's very important to one keep it out of the overall 24 hours, we practically end up spending about 8 to 10 hours at work. So, two, actually, a couple of things very important. One, you should love what you're doing because if you don't love, you will never succeed. Right, so that's what I also did. When initially it would take time for me to get grasp of things, but because I knew I wanted to do this, so I would start liking my work, and that helped me to go from one level to another. Plus, it's very important to make your work life a fun work life because, like I said, you spend a lot of time there. Initially, that I've been lucky enough to get that kind of a team as well. We were very fun loving because at the end of the day, you spend the maximum time there. So over a period of time, if you get a couple of things that you want to do, initially life is not easy, but over a period of months, it becomes easy because you get used to it, and then you kind of move ahead with it. So it's important to really have good, good teams if you're lucky enough. Else you build that team. No one stops you to build that team now. So it's important to have that team and also to have a light and healthy and a fun-loving atmosphere. Plus, at the end of the day, whatever you do, if your thought process, which I also believe a lot, if you're not positive in your thinking, you might do anything in the world. You might not really reach where you want to do. So I think over a period of time, these things have helped me to move up and also how I really move from one step to another. See, that's what one of your friends also asked, right? That what difference does it make if I do dual specialization? It's good to do dual specialization, it's good to do one of it, but at the end of the day, you will end up doing only one stuff, right? Either you'll do marketing, or you'll do finance, or you'll do HR or international business, whatever you guys want to take. You will end up doing only one. That one will only help you further ahead. I mean, nowhere the education goes for a waste, right? Somewhere down the line, it always benefits us. But when you're in your day-to-day stuff, but there's only one thing that you will do. You can't do finance and marketing or finance and HR, whatever you want to do. You can't do dual stuff at any point in time because in organizations, these are independent functions. They don't merge into one. So that's what you think. You should think really what you wear and what you want to do. So I think you can do dual specialization. Like